maybe I would have been a little more, would have said no, and would have been a little more protective of my artistic integrity. I didn't have I hadn't spent enough time studying to value my own talent, really. So if somebody offered me something, I would just take their word for it, And it could be a project that didn't really help my career, but it could hurt it. But maybe I should have waited, should have worked on my craft more and really picked stuff that I really wanted to do myself instead of what other people wanted me to do.
Welcome to Film Forums. I'm Matt Reifschneider, and today I have with me an icon of cinema, if I do say so myself, Dolph Lundgren, writer, producer, actor, you name it. How are you doing today, sir?
Fine, thanks. I'm in London at the moment. It's evening here, and I'm working here on a couple of movies. But it's nice to talk to you.
I know today we're chatting a little bit about your new film, Castle Falls. Why don't you tell us what your film, Castle Falls, is all about?
Castle Falls. Yeah, it's a thriller about kind of a bit of a heist situation where we have three desperate parties trying to get to this cash that's been stashed in this building. It's an old hospital, and it's going to be demolished by the mayor after about 3 hours. Well, 3 hours after they get in. So it's like a ticking clock type of situation. And you have one aging MMA fighter down in his luck, sleeps in his car, got no money. He's a construction worker in the building, and he finds his money. But there's also a prison guard who's heard about it, because the money was stolen by some gang members, and prison guard's daughter is very sick, and he's desperate to needs money for a special treatment for her and for leukemia. And then there's the brother of some of the guys in prison that also know about the money. So, and he has like 5 or 6 guys working for him. So all of these people converge in this building. And actually, while the mayor is out there playing marches and talking to his press people, having a cocktail party, inside is this mayhem going on where everybody's trying to get the cash and get out before the building blows.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of being able to see the film before this interview, and I have to say I quite thoroughly enjoyed it, and I loved that political satire in there with this all these marching bands and music that's going on, and all of these desperate people running against time, against each other, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. So, and I know on this film you are serving a multitude of different roles. You're acting in it, you're directing, you're producing. Can you kind of just describe what the day-to-day practicalities of juggling all of that was like on set?
Usually got up around 4, and then I'd have get ready and get my stuff together, and we usually ended up there at 5 o'clock, and 5:30. Usually crew call at 5:30. Well, I would be there at 5:30, and then I'd have to obviously deal with a COVID protocol, which was a big deal last year. We had a lot of shutdowns. We ended up shooting only 17 days. So we lost a bunch of time. 17 days, which is quite tough on a feature. And like Aquaman, for instance, I'm working on that as 109 days, I think. So anyway, then I try to remember my preparation as an actor as I'm preparing as a director, and basically work 12-hour days, and you have to walk 10 stories up for some of the scenes because there were no elevators. And work all day, come home, and then usually I'd be on a Zoom or something with people in production to solve some problems. And, it's kind of a full-time job. I had my fiance with me, thank God, to look after me and also kind of be my sort of second eye on set. She'd be on the monitor because I usually, unless, if I'm in the scene, I don't have time to run back and forth. I would say it's, so look for this or look for that. And if you don't believe something doesn't look believable, let me know, And that's kind of the day during production. And we got shut down a lot because of COVID. But, I had a good time, and I did the film as kind of an experiment to see if I wanted to direct again, because I directed about 15 years ago, and I ended up really liking it.
That's a great point to bring up. I'm actually a big fan of a lot of your directorial efforts. I loved Command Performance. I was a big fan of Icarus or The Killing Machine, or however it was sent over here in the US. But how did you kind of come about to Castle Falls as that experiment? What made you choose this project?
I had another film with Scott Adkins, and it fell through for some reason. So I was looking for a two-hander, and I found this script where, in the original script, the guard was a bad guy, and Mike was the fighter, but it didn't have as much subtext. But I thought I could fix it so that they're both kind of likable characters, but they end up fighting each other first, and then the bad guys. I did that, and then I had to tweak the budget. I had to take down some of the writer obviously can write anything they want, but we only had so much money, so I had to tweak that script. And then once I had that done, then I sent it to Scott, and he really liked it. So then I decided to direct, and I think what I wanted to do was to have a project that had enough action, but had drama, had some thriller elements, suspense, and wasn't big enough where I would take a huge risk if I messed it up, but something I could try out. And I think it was a pretty good. It was a good exercise for me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, it was phenomenal to see back to the director's seat again. Big fan of kind of what you've done so far, and it kind of sounds like Scott Adkins was involved in this. And I know you've worked with some of the greatest action cinema stars of all time, and you've worked with him multiple times on various projects. And Castle Falls does partner you on screen again with Scott Adkins. Like, how do you maintain those kinds of working relationships in the long term?
Well, I think generally I'm fairly nice to people and fairly positive, and fairly easy individual to be around, which I think helps. But Scott and I get along also on a martial arts level, and we've fought each other in movies. We've been opposite sides. Also, he is one of the few guys who can do his own fights without a double and do long takes, like 20-second takes, and not miss a beat. So I needed somebody to play that MMA guy who could do that, because I didn't want to double him. I didn't want to get an actor and then have to double him. And if I got an MMA fighter, then you could have a problem maybe with the drama. So he was perfect. And we had a really good operator, and I let him just go with it. So a lot of that stuff you see, even the editing of some of the fight scenes, is his doing. And, I could just thank him for helping me look good.
Yeah, I'm also a very large Scott Adkins fan, and the first time I saw you guys battle on screen was in Universal Soldier: Day of Reckoning, and I'll tell you, it was just fan service to the end. So
good movie. Yeah, no, he's Scott has that. There's only a few guys who can do that kind of fighting on their own. I mean, I kept up with him for one fight, but he did 5, I think, in the movie. So I got a little, I got banged up in our fight, pulled my bicep tendon. I had a bunch of injuries from other things that came up and bothered me, because you have to keep up with him, and he's fast, so it was a good exercise for me too.
And that's great that you guys have that working relationship. And I know you mentioned you're in London right now and you're working on a variety of projects. And, even if you look at IMDb, you're seeing there's 5 or 6 projects for you in the works. I don't, how much of that is true, right? Is all,
yeah, I haven't looked lately, but I know usually there's 1 or 2 that shouldn't be there,
But how do you kind of keep up? I mean, you have been putting out a lot of material lately. How do you kind of keep up that schedule, and how do you choose those projects?
Well, some of them came to me, like Aquaman 2 came to me. I knew it was in the works. I love James Wan and that whole cast and crew, and Jason Momoa and Amber. They're all great people. And this new script was really great, and my character had a bigger part. And, playing a king isn't so bad. Took 35 years, but also, I have. It's an interesting character because I'm always divided. Like in the first one, I never really never really trust people, and I'm all in the middle kind of thing. So that was great. Expendables 4, of course, that's Millennium. Stallone, I worked with those guys many times as well. And my directorial things, like I have another script I like to do, which is something I co-wrote like 10 years ago, and it's about immigration, but now it's a bigger issue because it takes place on the border. It's about illegal immigration, police corruption, and cartels and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think anything where I feel that I'm going to play something that's fun, that I will look forward to showing up on set. And I know on Aquaman I will, because it's always challenging, and good scenes and good subtext, and I'm trying to do stuff like that. I've done a lot of action, so if I get to drive a cool car or shoot somebody, I've done that in the movies so many times. I don't really. I mean, it's not bad, but I don't really enjoy it that much. It's more really about the story and the characters. A lot of things have happened last 3 or 4 years that I wanted to happen 20 years ago, but I wasn't ready, and it wasn't ready. It wasn't meant to be. I mean, it's like somebody said, nobody knew who Morgan Freeman was until he was like 55 years old. Did Driving Miss Daisy, 30 years ago, whatever. It's crazy. He had his huge career, but yeah, it was meant to be. Then he became, obviously a huge star and one of the best actors in the business.
Yeah, that's and I love that you're still putting out all of these great films, and I'm there to follow it, and I love that you're even going back to revisit some old ones. I loved seeing you in Creed 2 reprising your role as Drago there. And I mean, if you could, like, if there was a role that you could revisit again now that you've had some time under your belt and things like that, what would it be?
I don't know. I mean, that was the big one though, to do Drago, because that's how I was introduced. I couldn't do He-Man. I'm too old. I would have played King Nereus. I couldn't do. I mean, there's one fun movie that I came to my mind as you said it, which was I Come in Peace, with the alien that comes down, the drug dealer comes down, and then the cop comes after to catch him. I thought with modern visual effects, that could be a pretty cool story.
I love that movie. I remember the first time my brother showed that to me. He just like slides me a copy of it across the table, and he's like, "This is one of the greatest action movies you've never seen." And
I love that disc.
yeah,
And then we did that for not pretty low budget back in like 1989. It was Craig Baxley was a great stunt coordinator and director. He did a great job.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I mean that movie ends on the greatest one-liner of all time. It's got to
I
be
know,
one of
yeah,
them.
yeah, you're
So
right. Very 80s.
yeah, it's so good. I love it. So, and and I know you mentioned He-Man and kind of talking about that. When I kind of told people that I would be speaking with you, everyone wants to know about He-Man, and so like you played He-Man and you got to work with like Courtney Cox and Frank Langella. Did you like when you were on those sets and stuff like that? Did you see anything like did you know that Courtney Cox was going to be a star, or did you learn anything from Frank Langella?
I was just, I was fresh off of Rocky Four, which came out in '85, and I did the tour, like a world tour, and I came straight into Masters, and I had to switch from the Soviet, bad guy, killer of Apollo, to sort of like American hero, He-Man, and it was a huge weight on me with, Canon Films are kind of going under during production, and Courtney Cox, yeah, she was cute, she was a good actress, I remember that, and Langella was. I mean, I was always kind of respectful of him. I knew he was a great actor, and even with that, in those days, stiff kind of, silicone appliances, he managed to really play that character well. So I think for me, I was just wrapped up in it, and it was an adventure, and I remember, yeah, the whole thing, but going to Cannes and with Menachem Golan, and it was a crazy time in my life. I was just a Swedish kid engineering students, and suddenly, well, not everybody, but a lot of people knew me, and all the young ladies wanted to meet me, and I'd never, I had to deal with all of that during that production. And it was I think we did 54 nights in a row. I remember it was the record somewhere. I looked, I may be wrong, but it was the record before Scorsese did After Hours, where they did like 60 nights in a row or something. But it was tough. I was basically for 2-3 months. I was, only working at night. So there were, it was cold. My costume was the size of a stamp, more or less. It was just a little bit, 2 straps. So it was just an interesting experience. But I know people love that movie, and it's like one of the few films I've made that's for kids. That's not. It's kind of charming and cute. It doesn't have like violence and blood and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And then I know we're wrapping up some time here, but one of the questions I have to ask is, what advice would you give to aspiring actors and filmmakers now? Like, what do you wish you had known when you started in the industry back then?
Good question. Everybody has such a unique path that it's hard to advise people, because I could say that in my case, maybe I would have been would have said no, and would have been a little more protective of my artistic integrity. I hadn't spent enough time studying to value my own talent, really. So when somebody offered me something, I would just take their word for it, And it could be a project that didn't really help my career, but it could hurt it. But I should have waited. I should have worked on my craft more and really picked stuff that I really wanted to do myself instead of what other people wanted me to do. That would have been good, because, the more personal you are as an artist, the more you stick by your guns and believe in yourself. I think the stronger your statement is going to be. And there's always other people who are trying to dilute it. So I think that would have been probably helpful if I would have known that. But I was just too insecure, too excited about getting famous, and offered money, and maybe I wasn't discerning enough that I should have. It goes in quick steps for directors, quicker than actors. If you do one little movie, against all odds, that wins a bunch of awards, shit, you could be directing Morgan Freeman next. So I think, especially for directors, you have to do stuff you really believe in, and that you think is going to be, it's going to support to support your own, to believe in yourself. Really.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with me. Congratulations on Castle Falls.
Thanks, man. Very nice of you. Thank you.